Welcome into Hail to the podcast, brought to you by Maize and Blue Review. We cover Michigan athletics for the Rivals Network, which means you can find us at michigan.rivals.com. It's been, I don't even know what day it is, I'll be honest. It's been a crazy week already. Sherrone Moore trying to put his staff together, Michigan on the recruiting trail. Obviously, he's battling Jim Harbaugh when it comes to putting that staff together as well. So that's what we're going to dig into. We're going to talk about the things we know, some intel, some rumors, hopefully dispel some rumors as well, and kind of get an idea on where we think things are going with Sherrone Moore's first staff at Michigan as head coach. And then I'm sure we could talk about some of the narratives around Harbaugh and just everything that's happening in general right now as Michigan tries to move forward with Moore. Joining me, as always, Josh Henschke, Intel insider and publisher of Maize and Blue Review. Are you like me? Like, I'm still the season ended. I'm just kind of spinning, and it's like there's a lot of not a lot of answers right now, too. That's
yeah, exactly. There's the wheels seem to be turning kind of small or kind of slow here, but it's it is what it is. We just gotta get through this part here, and
that's why you did that. Fair enough.
Trying to figure out what's next, but we're getting there,
and it's weird. It does feel like things are moving slow, but then at the same time too, like he was just announced Saturday,
right?
And then you and I were texting earlier, and it's like I wonder what things are at least done or understood in the background that like Michigan's just bad at PR, man. You know what I mean? Like there's little things you could say or do that I think would make the fans feel a lot better. I do think some of it might have to do with which pieces come in and which, in terms of roles, but we'll get into all of that. So I want to lead off with, though, I think the biggest thing we've been talking about and people have been asking, right, when we go and do other pods and things like that is, hey, what's going to be different with Sherrone Moore? We know continuity and this culture maintaining is a big piece of it, but what do you think he's going to do different? What do you think is important to him? And from the get-go, we've been talking about recruiting, right? You had some intel pretty early on. Moore acknowledged it in his opening press conference. And right now, I think the name that really shows Moore's vision, right? We don't know if this is going to happen or not. Josh will give some intel, but Moore is swinging for the fences here, going for Chad Bowden over at Notre Dame. If you kind of want to talk about his role and what they're looking to do by bringing him on and where things sit there. But I thought whether they get him or not, that just shows where Moore's head at. He's not going the safe route and maybe just adding dudes he knows. Like he's arguably targeting guys that have been a thorn in his side in the past too, right?
I mean, definitely. He's probably sick of seeing Bowden and Notre Dame stealing all these guys that they've been in on too. So, I mean, they're working. Sherrone is pulling out all the stops to get Chad Bowden in to Michigan in kind of a director of player personnel role. It's kind of a all-encompassing thing. He'll work, with the recruiting staff, all the normal responsibilities of a director of player personnel, scouting and things like that, and team organization. Sherrone's also offering more money, like significantly more money to Bowden. Staff, an increased staff pool that, we mentioned before. That was the plan, to kind of beef up the recruiting department. Well, this is part of it. He's not necessarily part of the recruiting department per se, but those two kind of, the recruiting department and director player personnel kind of work hand in hand. So basically it's a big promotion for him if he decides to take it. And right now it's kind of a head versus heart type of deal, because his head, suggests that, hey, this is a big promotion. This is a big step up in what I'm doing now, and it's a big step up in his career. Or does he go the heart route where, he's been friends with Marcus Freeman for years? I mean, he's a Marcus Freeman disciple. Those two have been attached at the hip for forever. So does he leave the comfort of what he's known basically in his time in college football, is Marcus Freeman, or does he go to Michigan? So I know Notre Dame they're going to have to drum up some support here to match this. Whatever Michigan is offering, they're going to have to, or Freeman's going to have to drum up some support to get it. And that's not a guarantee to say that they even will at this point. I know that Bowden and Freeman have yet to speak one-on-one. I know that was the plan today and tomorrow. Freeman's out recruiting on the road right now. So I think Friday is the only day that he's not recruiting. So I'm assuming that's when the one-on-one conversation will take place. And maybe we'll get a better, clearer view of where things are trending right now. But, from everyone that I've spoken with, Michigan feels pretty confident that they can get him. Now, what happens if Notre Dame matches? Well, I was told that Sherrone would bump up the offer even more if Notre Dame were to match it. That's how serious he is about this whole thing. So does this happen? I don't know. Right now, I think he's leaning Michigan, but he's yet to talk to Freeman. So
Right.
once he talks, what does Notre Dame offer? I don't know what they can or can't offer, but I know that Freeman can't just say, okay, yep, we'll match that, no problem. I mean, he's going to have to talk to people. So that was kind of the big interesting thing, and there's no doubt that if they were able to get this over the finish line for Michigan, that's a huge win for Sherrone Moore. I mean, you're coming out right away and really swinging for the fences. A guy that's, Freeman calls elite. He's an elite off the field guy in recruiting and all that stuff. Big part of what has made Notre Dame so good in recruiting since Freeman took over. And yeah, I mean, that's just, it'll show that, Michigan's not only not afraid to open up the pocketbooks for some off-field staff, but, thanks, Dennis.
He does have a nice little haircut.
Yeah. I decided to get it done today. I lost my point, but yeah, that Sherrone can flex his muscles a little bit in terms of getting guys in and I guess promoting what he wants to do as
It's
a
a
head
statement
coach.
as much as anything, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, so it'll be an interesting couple of days for sure. We'll kind of see what happens. I mean, Michigan right now is confident that they can get him. Those two, Bowden and Moore, have talked a lot over the last couple of days. I'll be curious to see what happens once Bowden gets time to talk to Freeman and go from there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's absolutely going to happen for sure.
Right.
But right now, I would give Michigan the slight advantage, but that's because he hasn't really spoken to anyone at Notre Dame yet. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But I mean, that's an opportunity to be a big splash for sure.
I think for right now, I'm just comfortable with what it means that he's trying. Right. I know that when Courtney Morgan left, there wasn't really that type of addition to the recruiting department after. Right? Tom Gamble was a friend of Harbaugh's, right?
Mhm.
So that GM role, we've seen other programs do that. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big statement in terms of, again, taking recruiting seriously. Whether it's Bowden or someone else, I really like that Moore's taking the shot. Him and then the tight end coach at Georgia reaching out to him. Again, I immediately just thought about, like, with Bowden, it's like CJ Carr, Zinter's brother, Will Black, the offensive lineman.
Mhm.
Georgia, I could list how many tight ends
Yeah.
as George, and Hartley was at Miami too, and he got Mallory and some other guys there too. So I like that he's almost like, hey, who are the guys that have given me the biggest problems on the recruiting trail? Because that's who I want to talk to. Right. I like that mindset. So we'll see where it goes. Folks have been asking about the DC role. So let's kind of get into, I'm trying to think how I want to frame this. Yeah, we can get into this a little bit. So obviously Jesse Minter has left. all signs, expectations are he will be with Harbaugh at the Chargers. That hasn't been announced yet, but that is obviously the expectation. Also out, Dylan Roney. He's an analyst we've talked about quite a bit on this pod. He's somebody that we wondered if maybe he would get a look at that linebacker role. He's been good with recruiting, good with the edge guys. He's heading out. And then obviously Ben Herbert. Let's touch on him real quick, some things you've heard, and talk about that. And then we'll get to the rest of the position coaches and definitely talking about DC and some moves that are happening there. But Ben Herbert obviously goes. We've talked about this already, and I don't want to really beat a dead horse. Obviously, things were trending in a positive direction. He was already the highest paid strength and conditioning coach. They offered to give him even more money. And then at the end of the day, Jim Harbaugh wasn't going to say no. And Ben Herbert chose to go to LA.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. Like, I know people are upset because, hey, I wish I remembered the wording on our board. Somebody posted this so brilliantly. I know he's good. I want him in my program, and it's not my money. So keep him. Like, that's the mindset we kind of have, right? But at the end of the day, Ben Herbert made a personal choice and he left. We've heard some weird rumors, though, about absurd contract requests and Michigan dropping the ball there. You posted on this a little bit before we came in. What are you hearing in regards to that? Is it as simple as Michigan could have kept him and chose not to?
No, that's not it at all. I mean, I think you nailed it. That was his decision to leave. Any talk of Herbert wanting a 10-year, for some reason I was asked about this a bunch of times this week, and I'm not really sure why or where it came from, but there was this thing that people were asking, like, oh, hey, Herbert wanted this 10-year deal, but Michigan wouldn't match and things like that. And yeah, it's crap. It's not true. It is not true. Multiple people I've spoken with have said it's not true, and not just on Michigan's side.
Use the word they used.
Oh, bullshit. Yeah, it's bullshit. It is bullshit. It is not true. So, yeah, I mean, it's basically, it's Herbert's decision to leave. And I know people have mentioned, oh, hey, you guys were saying he was staying over the weekend. Well, that's because he was.
Right.
He was staying over the weekend. The players knew. The coaches that were there were new. And then all of a sudden, Harbaugh comes out of nowhere and just offers this insane contract to Herbert, to the point where, he couldn't really say no. I know there was some desire. He told the players when he left on Monday. Because he conducted a lift session on Monday, and afterwards said he was leaving and then just left and never came back. But that was basically telling him that, that he just wanted to try the NFL. He wanted to give the NFL a shot.
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to. And I know the arguments out there that, what NFL strength and conditioning coaches and all that stuff or what they do or don't do, but that's just simply what he wanted to do. And it was kind of a last minute thing that he changed his mind. I mean, because he was very much staying, as of heading into the weekend. We're not just making this stuff up that Herbert was leaving, was, staying, but had the intentions of leaving the whole time. This was very much a last minute thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big loss. I mean, the players were rightfully upset. A lot of them were pissed off. But, I think, and part of it too, Abigail O'Connor said after that, shortly after that speech that Ben Herbert gave, was that she was staying. So that kind of lifted the spirits up of a lot of people too. And I think that's a big keep for Sherrone, because she is just as important to the program as the strength and conditioning program is. So we'll kind of see what Justin Tress is and what he's about. I mean, it's
about that shit is what he's about.
Yeah. If you saw that clip, Nicky Marotti said the business, but
such a good video.
Yeah, he's a guy that's been around Herbert for years. I mean, since Tress has gotten into the business, he's been around Herbert in multiple stops too, including Arkansas. So I think continuity from a same thought process and I guess coaching tree is good. But they're not the same person. So, they're two different people. So what we really don't know is how Tress can handle an entire program by himself. Is he probably, he's young. I mean, he's only like 28 or something like that. It's insanely young for a strength and
They're all
conditioning
young.
coordinator. Right. But
every name that comes up, I'm like, oh my God.
Right. And so he was recommended by Herbert for a reason. So I'm not going to doubt that. But, he is young, and this is a big time program coming with big time shoes that a lot of people have to fill in this program. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm not obviously well versed in the strength and conditioning world, so I don't know how that works or what a good leader should be. I mean, obviously, if you follow Ben Herbert's lead and his path, then you're probably going to be very good. But again, they're two different people. It's not as simple as just walking in the door with a whistle around your neck and blowing the whistle and telling people to do things. There's a lot of recruiting was a huge part of Ben Herbert's deal. Like measuring recruits and, putting body analysis and stuff and telling them what they would do when they arrive on campus. So there's a lot of that goes into it too. Can Tress do that? I don't know. That's what he's going to have to prove. So, injury prevention is another big one too. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just simply just getting a guys in a room and lifting weights. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and having Abigail O'Connor there, it helps too, because having people on the same page with the nutrition standpoint is hugely important for a good strength and conditioning program. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be hunky-dory. It's going to be fantastic. We don't know. And obviously we can say the same about Sherrone Moore as a head coach too. So it's, it's unfortunate that that Ben Herbert is left, but you got to move on. You got to recover. And, having a Herbert disciple is a good start. And we'll just have to see how things progress.
Well, and you had the idea, and then I ended up writing the article about the similarities between Harbaugh's move from Stanford to San Francisco and his move now to Los Angeles. And the similarities are crazy shocking, right? David Shaw, OC, gets promoted. Sherrone Moore gets promoted, brings defensive coordinator, Fangio with him, Jesse Minter, NFL ties. And the other thing he did, despite the fact the 49ers had a strength and conditioning coach that they insisted on and did keep, was he insisted on bringing Kevin Tolbert with him. And he made sure Tolbert came and had a role in San Francisco. And then Tolbert came with him to Michigan. And when Jim Harbaugh made the decision to move on from Tolbert to hire the guy that people thought wasn't working out at Arkansas, people were like, oh, what are you doing? Who's this Ben Herbert guy? Right. So to your point, we don't know. Right. We don't know a ton about Tress. We're not in there with him. Moore's confidence in him, etc. And then as far as like Jim hurting Michigan by bringing him, Jim Harbaugh brought him to Michigan, man.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh hired him. He has a job at the Chargers and he knows it's cutthroat and he needs to be successful and he thinks Herbert can help him. And he did what he could do to get him. And at the end of the day, Herbert said yes. Right. So as far as players' reaction, I think you brought it up. Not going to pretend it wasn't emotional. People weren't upset. Everybody wants to ask about who's going in the portal and blah, blah, blah. Here's the deal. Nobody yet. Reese Atterbury is the only portal loss so far. Mm-hmm. These are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, college students going to class, still taking part in their role as an athlete in the football program. If we hear anything, we'll let you know.
Yeah, that's right? Basically what it comes down to.
We're not going to get these constant daily updates on what kids are doing or what they're thinking, right? Or whatever. Obviously, the conversations are taking place. Am I more anxious because Herbert's gone? Sure. Why wouldn't I be? There's guys that committed to Michigan almost specifically because of Harbaugh, Minter, and Herbert, right? Like, so, but it is what it is. So that's where we are with that. As far as the guys that are out, Minter, Roney, Herbert, things that we know, Bellamy's staying on as wide receiver coach. He's been on the recruiting trail. Grant Newsome, we talked about this. We kind of wondered if he would switch to O-line coach anyway, even if Harbaugh came back to kind of take some pressure off of Moore. He's been upgraded O-line coach the day he was out recruiting a 5-star offensive lineman prospect, right? So Newsome's on the trail. On the other side of the offensive ball, Mike Hart. There's been a lot of rumors around him. And this entire cycle tends to be when there's a void of information, obviously that's when things are going to really heat up in terms of rumors, right? So Hart wasn't at the celebration, wasn't at Moore's press conference, hasn't been a lot of noise with him on the recruiting trail. So there's some assumptions, there's some rumors. I know, again, there's not anything firm yet, but do you want to speak to Mike Hart at all a little bit?
Yeah, I think the thing is here that no one really knows what's going to happen yet. I don't think I can say with confidence that he's currently on the staff, but I don't think I can say with confidence that he's not currently on the staff. I mean, I think he's just kind of existing right now. And I think a lot of guys kind of are until Sherrone kind of figures out how he wants to assemble the staff. But there's been kind of two camps. And obviously the only two outcomes that are available to this whole thing is that one, he leaves, or two, he stays. And those that say he's leaving far outweigh those that say he's staying. So the thing is, where would he leave to? I don't know. And I don't see Sherrone just straight up cutting him from the staff. So it's kind of just waiting and seeing on how a lot of these dominoes are going to fall. I mean, and that goes for, the defensive guys that we'll talk about too, coming up. It's just crazy. It's crazy times right now because there's just not much out there, and not much traction yet. Obviously getting Grant Newsome in as offensive line coach is good, but it's kind of, it's kind of see where we're at. And to JL's point here, we don't know if Hart wants to be OC. We don't know if Sherrone has discussed the offensive coordinator role with.
I think aspirations in general are fair, though, right?
Yeah.
We know he's interviewed for other roles and hasn't MAC level head coaching jobs, other OC jobs the last couple of years, and it just hasn't taken hold. We heard about this Buffalo job that just recently opened, Western Michigan previously, right? And I don't know, he might have to go the Tyrone Wheatley route and just go be a running back coach in the NFL. If he doesn't want to just be the running back coach at Michigan, then, and again, like we said with Herbert and everybody else, this is a human being with a life and family, and he's got to make his own decision, right?
Yeah, right. I want to respond here real quick. The full season. Why is it? Because he was talking about the Herbert
10-year Herbert thing.
Yeah. Why is everyone else saying that then? Well, because everyone else likes to spread bullshit. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. People like to just spread crap that doesn't exist. This situation doesn't exist. And everyone likes to get their tinfoil hats out about Ward and whatever. This situation literally did not exist. It did not happen. So everyone else takes a small piece of crap info, and then that ball of dung falls down the dunghill and gets even dungier until it turns into a snowball of dung and poo and fake stuff. And now you get people actually having to respond to some of this stuff.
Your poop analogies or something else.
Well, it is. It's all shit. It's all shit. What else can you really say? It's just people just pull stuff.
Ward is an easy target right now.
Right. And that's part of it too.
people are upset because, again, like I said earlier, you want Ben Herbert to stay. It's not my money. Pay him whatever. Give him $10 million if that makes him stay. I mean, we literally saw people posting this on message boards. Pay him $10 million a year. Like, what? So,
Right.
and yeah, I'm not defending. I don't want to get into defending or not defending Ward. That's just
there was no keeping him. There was no convincing Herbert to stay. It's done. It's done. So there was no convincing him. Once he was gone, he's gone. There's nothing Ward could have done to keep him, because I mean, yeah, say what you will about Ward and other stuff. Then you have an argument for most of this stuff, but again, blaming for Jim and Ward, or excuse me, Jim and Ben Herbert, it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. Anyway,
yeah.
Mike Hart, we'll see what happens there. He was, I guess he offered a kid in 2025, I guess. I mean, that doesn't mean the way I was told about with coaches still recruiting is that you shouldn't take that as a sign that they're leaving or staying, because a guy could be on the road recruiting and, could get a call, in the next 2 minutes and then say he's got a job and then he'll just leave.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee just because you see,
well, and they're still employed.
Right. Well, that too. Yeah. They have a job to do. So
right.
There's that. I mean, they're still working, but, it's not just because you see Mike Elston retweeting recruit offers and things like that. It doesn't necessarily mean he's staying, but we'll have more on him in a bit. Yeah. But as far as I know, Kurt Campbell, offensive coordinator, it's leaning that way. Ron Bellamy obviously staying. Tight end coach, we've heard some names. Kevin Koger is one of them. I asked our Georgia people about the Todd Halfley rumors, and they weren't able to verify them. So I don't know. I can't say with certainty that conversation took place. Their argument was, why would you want to take a lateral move? Which, true. Right. Why would you want to take a lateral move? But the only two certainties we know is that Grant Newsome is OL offensive line coach and Ron Bellamy is wide receiver coach. We'll kind of see what happens with Mike Hart, scrubbing his Twitter account of all Michigan details is kind of weird. But if he's telling people he's staying, but others are saying that he might not be part of the staff, there's some stuff that have to be waded through here, in the future. Yeah. So, really nothing concrete I can say about Mike Hart, except it's a kind of an odd situation that we don't really know which way this is going to go yet. I think there is something to the not being part of the staff thing. Maybe they come back to it and circle back to it, and he is, but yeah, we'll kind of see. I mean, it's very much still up in the air right now.
I think the offense, like you already mentioned the positions we know and what we're waiting on, and filling in a tight end coach or whatever it might be, but that's largely settled. Obviously on defense, there's a lot of questions. There is a defensive coordinator opening with Jesse Minter leaving. And then there's been some question, obviously safeties coach with Jay Harbaugh leaving, and then linebacker coach was already open with Chris Partridge. So position wise there. Some of we'll talk about Klink and Elston in a second, because that's a big piece of this. But in terms of some of the things we were hearing for external names that could be a factor, one of them was Clint Hurt, a guy that has connections to Moore from a previous stop. He was the DC with the Seahawks. He's already signed on to be the defensive line coach with the Eagles. I will be frank, I'm not real upset about that. I didn't see the fit in terms of scheme. And then obviously coming off of it, whether it was his fault or not, a difficult year in Seattle. That one just didn't make a ton of sense to me. The other two that have kind of been linked in a lot of ways to each other in different openings have been Jim Leonhard, which, let me be frank, Jim Leonhard's been linked to every defensive coordinator opening that exists for the last 2 years. I don't think people have a really good read on what that situation is. It sounds like to me he wants NFL DC or a head coach opening. I don't even know if he would entertain college DC. Missouri seemed pretty convinced they were going to get him, and they ended up getting a dude from South Alabama instead. So whatever, he's still out there because the Packers hired Jeff Hafley, the old Ohio State DC, Boston College head coach, to be their DC. Word was the Packers didn't even reach out to Leonhard this time because Matt LaFleur was upset he turned him down last time. Who knows? Mm-hmm. The other name tied to the Packers was the Ravens linebacker coach, Zach Orr, who we've been talking about because going back to when Mike McDonald was hired, John Harbaugh mentioned three coaches to his brother Jim, and that was McDonald, Minter, and Orr. Right. So that kind of seemed like a logical connection, but now Mike McDonald is the head coach of the Seahawks. Right. So he's got an opening for a DC. Baltimore's got an opening as well now with McDonald leaving. They've got 3 or 4 internal candidates they could be looking at. There's a lot of moving parts there. I don't know where we are in terms of Orr's chances of coming here. And the Jim Leonhard thing, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest with you, what's legitimate there. But all that said, Steve Klingscale and Mike Elston are still 2 internal options as well, whether it's in a co-DC role or whatever that looks like. And then obviously them staying, right? Jim Harbaugh has basically offered everybody on this staff except for maybe Hart possibly, right? So Klink and Elston are 2 guys, like you said, have been out recruiting. But where do you think things sit with them, not only as staying members of the staff, but potentially being some part of the answer at defensive coordinator?
Yeah, this one's kind of another interesting one because this one almost sounds like you kind of have to wait until a couple of dominoes fall in order to figure out what you're doing. I'm not convinced that Sherrone wants to change things up schematically. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I would be kind of surprised if that does happen. Especially just because of the names that we've been hearing, like Orr specifically, a Ravens guy.
Well, and honestly, Jim Leonhard, like 90% of his scheme is already here. Like,
right,
it's
exactly
pretty similar. Again, I don't know how much credibility there is to Leonhard, but
I honestly don't buy it. And Darren Talks Ball brings up a really good point here. Jim Leonhard had to take a job as an analyst at Illinois. That concerns me.
He had back surgery last year.
Yeah.
And decided to take a year off because he was going to go to the Eagles and he backed out of that. So, and then the analyst thing kind of came out, but there's obviously, screw it, it's the elephant in the room. There's a lot of rumors and talk about the way things finished in Wisconsin too.
Yeah, so, that was kind of weird.
And it's odd that he is tied to all these openings and then absolutely nothing comes from it. So either he's not actually tied to it and it's just people going, hey, this is a guy that I used to know was really good, he's available, or he's shooting him down. I don't know. There's just a weird vibe to Leonhard. I don't know the truth about it. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, most of that's kind of just speculation on our part, but it is kind of a weird thing. It's so, we kind of have to just wait and see what these dominoes look like because that's true.
Hugh Freeze hired DJ Durkin to be his defensive coordinator.
Yep, exactly.
Good God.
Exactly.
All right.
So we'll just kind of have to wait to see what the dominoes look like. I don't know if Sherrone's going to go outside hire. There's been kind of two things of thought here. One is go for an outside hire and fill in the rest of your staff that way. And then the next one is to go the co-defensive coordinator route with Klingscale and Elston. So I don't know what that would look like from a play calling standpoint. Neither guy really has much play calling experience. They have experience in the defense.
Right.
No, Folds here. He definitely killed a kid. Both him and Brian Kelly killed a kid. They straight up killed people. Say what you will about the Brian Kelly on the forklift with the wind and stuff. He killed a kid too. Durkin also killed a kid. Yeah, the fact that both even Durkin especially because he's probably more at fault than Kelly. But yeah, the fact that he still has a job is shocking and disgusting. I mean, the way he ended his time in Maryland is just it was disgraceful. So
I do want to say his name just because Jordan McNair.
Yeah, Jordan McNair
was a player at Maryland who died during practice from heat stroke, and there was a lot of just reckless disregard in the way those practices were being run, and it's just awful. So
yep, it is terrible. No, it's terrible. And the fact that he's still coaching is just insane. But whatever. No one gives more second chances in the world than college
football.
Well, yeah. Football. Yeah, I guess football in general. So anyway,
Clinking out.
Yeah, clinking out. So there's kind of this talk of whether Jim Harbaugh actually offered Elston a contract or not, or wants him to come on staff. There's a small contingent that says, yeah, that's an option. And the other one says that, no, it's not really an option. So, and we don't really know what Jim Harbaugh's staff looks like because there's been no announcements. So that we don't know if there's any names that are out there that he's considering. It's, we'll kind of see what happens. But as far as from what I'm aware in terms of both of those guys staying, I've gotten all signs are pointing to Elston staying, but again, this stuff could change in a heartbeat, like we saw with Herbert. Right. So, right now in this moment in time, it looks like both guys are going to stay. Klink and Elston are going to stay. Obviously they're both out recruiting, but again, that doesn't mean much. I mean, it means that they're still working. Of course, they're working with Sherrone, so that you take some stock into that, of course, but you don't,
because the alternative is they're not.
Yeah, right. And if you're going the way of being kind of MIA like Hart has been, then you would start to really wonder. But both of those guys are working. I mean, I take some sort of, I guess, solace in that they're both doing their jobs right now. But again, until we see some sort of just some clarity on what they're going to do with the DC spot, you can kind of you're almost speculating at this point what's going to happen next. So really, I think the first big domino that needs to happen is Sherrone Moore needs to figure out the DC route. And I'm not saying that he's just sitting there going, well, I don't know. No, he's working through it. I mean, these are big decisions he has to make, and he wants to get them right. So, is the outside candidate the right move to make, or does he, promote two guys that don't really have much play calling experience, but are familiar with the defensive system? I don't know, but I think the first big domino to fall needs to be the defensive coordinator, because then you really have an idea of, okay, this defensive coordinator, let's call it Zachary Orr, right? Orr's the guy. He works with linebackers. So do you say, okay, the DC is going to be the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach? Okay, so what do you do after that with the rest of your staff? Do you want a safeties coach, or do you say, hey, Steve Klimscale, do you want to coach the safeties too? And that way we can have an extra coach somewhere else. So there's a lot of moving parts to this thing that still need to, that are moving. Don't get me wrong, they're moving, but they're not moving in
sorry, real quick, because this is annoying me. The comments are going back and forth here because Antoine said we had 0 assistants to make 7 figures. That's just not true. Moore and Minter both made 1.15 base. Steve Clinkscale made 850 and probably topped $1 million with bonuses from Michigan success. Herbert made $1 million. The Minter had an offer, and Moore would have had an offer as OC. Both of them would have been the highest paid coordinators in football. So
yeah, both of those guys would have been paid like $2 million.
Yeah, so it's just not true. And moving forward, I do think you're going to see. I mean, we talked about the Harbaugh savings, right? We've already seen recruiting department potentially going after a guy like Bowden. Like, money's not going to be. I know everybody wants to get into that. Money's not going to be an issue. It's just not. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. So, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of speculation right now, and let's look at it this way: it's only been a week. I'm sorry, it's not even
technically a couple days. Yeah,
right. It's only been a couple of days, so you got to go through the interview process and stuff. Of course, you got to get some names on the board. So, that still has to that moving part still has to move. So, I think the longer this thing goes with no news of Klink or Elston departing, I think the odds of them staying on are good. I think right now the odds are doing pretty are sitting pretty well. Obviously, we said that about. I mean, I can keep going back to the Ben Herbert thing until I'm blue in the face, but just shit happens. All right, stuff happens sometimes, and things that we thought we knew one day aren't going to be the same the next. I mean, that just happens. So who knows? We could get off this podcast in 20 minutes or whatever, and then everything that we just said is completely invalidated by a move that Sherrone makes that becomes official or something. So a lot of this is just speculation. So I think the first big move that not has to make, but in order to kind of get a better sense of what's going on defense is the coordinator spots. I don't think he needs to go positions, then coordinator. I think he needs to go from the coordinator on down, and you can do the same thing. You can make the same argument for offense too, as we all think, Kirk Campbell's going to be the guy on offense to call plays. So, and more basically hinted as much that during his introductory press conference. So I'm not bringing any, crazy big scoops here. I mean, this is like obviously what we know. So, yeah, I mean, and again, and what is going against Sherrone right now too is, we're pretty late in the cycle. I mean, end of January, it's tough to make a move because a lot of the guys that probably would have moved have already moved and not necessarily going to move again. So that's also a bad timing, but I think the big thing that needs to happen is defensive coordinator needs to be hired, and then they kind of figure out how they want to plug and play other guys from there, because it kind of just depends on what type of coordinator they're going to get. Obviously, they're not going to change scheme a whole lot, but because a lot of that scheme is kind of based on feel, mindset, and decision making. So, it kind of, that's a big part in being a coordinator, that, it's either you got it or you don't. You can't get coached. So, yeah, I mean, it was still very much in the unknown stages right now.
Well, and a couple things on to your points there. The Ravens scheme isn't some magical thing too that like nobody ever thought of before, right? It's not like the 46 defense with the Bears in the 80s or whatever, right? What the Ravens do and the scheme that Michigan has isn't, I mean, it's a break off of Wink Martindale. It has some Vic Fangio in it as well, which is part of why it was in Baltimore to begin with and why Harbaugh was interested in it, right? These are, if you start going up the ladder of these names, a lot of them end up being connected, right? The 4-2-5 itself, the multiple front defense, those kind of things. It's not hard to maybe find. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Ravens guy, right? I am super intrigued by Zach Orr because he is a linebacker coach, which you know, if you wanted to bring in somebody maybe more recruiting oriented for that spot, or even somebody that you're bumping up a spot, whether you go get like a Ryan Osborne again. I know Roney is gone, but that was kind of the mindset before. I could put Roney in there and I have help with Orr. And again, recruiting, right? This guy that played at DeSoto in Texas in a powerhouse there, it feels like he could be a really good recruiter in terms of keeping guys on the staff. Klink and Elston are guys that have been really good recruiters for you and have shown in the past that they can hit the trail, right? That's going to be a big part of it too, is this isn't going to be the exact same. Moore's going to have his own expectations. These guys got to decide too, like, hey, is this, you know, where we want to be and go down this road? I'm with you. It feels like they're going to stay. Things can change, blah, 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 whatever. I don't know. I'm torn on the co-DC thing because it makes sense with Campbell because so much of the offense was a collaborative effort anyway. But to what I was saying with the Raven scheme and what you said, a lot of it, Minter was just really good at making adjustments and calling plays, right? And finding ways to take advantage of your strengths and hide your weaknesses and things like that. So just saying like, oh, you know, Klink and Elston have been here. They know the scheme and I don't want to lose them. We'll make them co-DCs. Not saying that's what that move would mean. Right. But if that's the logic, I don't love it. Right. And same thing too, just hiring. I like Zach Orr on paper. You got to go beyond the paper part of it. Right. But just hiring him just because he's a Ravens guy or some of these other Ravens names that are out there, it's got to be more than that. Right. And the fit matters and who they're going to be as, again, recruiters seems to be a big piece of Moore's focus and fitting them in there. So the last point you made too, I think there could be a pause on things because it's like, well, I don't know if I'm going to hire this guy as safety coach, because if I do hire him as safety coach, that changes what I do here and special teams and tight end. And, you know, maybe I move Bellamy back to safeties coach, which he was initially supposed to be, right? Or maybe I hire a guy. When Chris Partridge was hired, we kind of knew he was going to take over for George Hilo, but that hadn't happened yet. So they're like, oh, here's a staffer, right? And we talked about this before we came on texting too. Michigan's not great at the PR piece.
Yeah.
Right. So they may feel good about what's being said and done behind the scenes and conversations and things like that. And then we're all kind of just sitting here like, what's going on? You know, throw us a bone. Like the Tress and Abigail thing. It's exactly what that was. They saw what was going on with Herbert and they're like, hey, promoted and retained. Right. So we just kind of want some of that with the coaching staff. But again, more was made official on Saturday. It's Wednesday. And people are potentially deciding whether they're going to move their entire families and this and that. Like, I don't know. I would hope by the end of the week we get something, not the full staff per se, but something, right? But it's interesting where things are trending. I like the shots Moore is taking. I will judge the staff when it's complete, and then I will obviously judge that on their results. But in terms of Moore's mindset and swinging for the fences and however you want to word it in a difficult situation, replacing a guy like Harbaugh. And again, to your point again, going into February, right? That's late. We saw, we've seen it with other staffs where they get into February and it's kind of a tough situation. So that's where we sit with football staffing and rumors in and out. Josh has been posting intel and answering questions left and right inside the den over at michigan.rivals.com. If you're not a subscriber already, make sure you get over there, sign up. You can use promo code NATChamps24 and be free until the end of March. Get access to Josh's intel as we get through this coaching staff buildup. Josh, you're lucky. We have 10 minutes or so left. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it. I saw people in the comments that said they were here for it. I've had a couple texts asking as well.
Oh, you got text about it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, boy.
This is it, dude. This is who you are now. People are here for the show. You seem too tired for a full-on tirade, but look,
I know it's not going to be I don't know. I could work myself up. You never know.
See how you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Here's the
basketball.
thing. Here's the thing. Part of the reason you're probably not going to, it's a lot of this. We're saying the same stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's a rivalry game. You come out and play pretty well in the first half. You've got to leave a lead, excuse me.
Yeah.
And then it
Speaking about leaving, I can tell you someone that should leave. I got one guy to tell you that should leave tomorrow.
But that's the thing. This team is at a point where they have to shoot 60% from the field and play that kind of lights out to have a lead at the half. And then they just come out and it's like, what are you doing at halftime?
Nothing.
You know, and I've seen people want to talk about, well, you know, he tried to get we saw Liaila not coming to Michigan now, which again, once we found out he was basically a professional player and signed a contract, he probably wasn't going to come. Right. Caleb Love. Oh, but that's not his fault. Well, maybe it was. Like, he's got the academic restraints he has. He wasn't going to get in. We wasted 2 months on that. Shannon, I don't necessarily blame him for it. If the Texas Tech coach had released him, Shannon would be here. Right. But yeah, I've seen people defend Harbaugh, or not Harbaugh, Howard, like, oh, Dickinson and Bufkin and Jet left. And it's, you know, in this new era, replacing talent. Well, yeah, they didn't make the tournament with those guys. Right. And just the in-game management and just the vibe around this program. It's tough, man. Did they win? Was it one game in January?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Michigan football won more games in January than Michigan basketball.
Right.
Doesn't look, I mean, they might hit double-digit wins. They're at 7.
This team stinks.
It's tough,
this
man.
Team sucks. It is just a suck fest to watch. I mean, what more can be said that I already haven't said? I mean, you got to fire everyone. There's no saving this. This is just terrible. If basketball was a half a game, Michigan would be national champions for the past 3 years running. It's just they employ incredible first half defense, but look, no one has any idea in that program how to assemble a roster. Clearly, I mean, you've got mix and matched guys. You don't even have point guard depth because you can't even make sure your point guard, your starting point guard, is submitting his blue books on time or even showing up to class. Can't even do his marketing 104 papers. Like, just like, why are we even sitting in this position to talk about this? It's ridiculous. You are bringing all these guys in that are attempting to bring all these guys in that you damn well know that they are not going to get in. But you're like, well, maybe some higher power will be able to bring them in. No, you can't be doing this stuff. You're flying by the seat of your pants, having no freaking clue what you're doing. No one has a clue what they're doing. There was way more structure under Phil Martelli than there for like 4 games than there were the last 3 years. After the Beeline guys dropped off, we really saw the damning of, we really saw how bad this got. You know, yeah, you had stragglers at the end of it, but it's just,
I forgot how fun those first few games were.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that, I don't know what the hell happened to that team. Well, probably grades, probably one of them. They didn't have a GPA at that point of the year. They weren't even having classes. It's why we're even, for anything to blame Ward about. If he keeps him, Jawan, after this year, then yeah, you have every right to trash him. That's my point of view, and that's where I'm standing right now. Because you cannot keep this going into next year. No one's going to want to play for you, and you're going to go for guys that can't even get into school anyway. There's like 6 guys that he's gone after that aren't even qualified to get into school. That's like 6 roster spots. It's disgraceful. It is terrible. You know, you've got your best strength and conditioning guy now left at the university after Herbert left, just put into a corner. who has a really good player as a son, who no way in hell is coming to Michigan now if Juwan's still here. That's not happening. That kid's probably going to be a 5-star, and he's going to go somewhere else. There's a ton of kids that grew up Michigan fans. There's a couple of kids in Detroit, and I can't think of their names right now because I'm on this rant. Those two guys were almost locks to come to Michigan, and now they're probably going to go somewhere else because they're 5-star guys and they're national recruits, but it's not even. It's unfathomable what this program is. It's unfathomable, and it's just. It's an awkward thing because Juwan means a lot to the Michigan program, yes. And I'm not taking away what he's done, as a player. And, he won a Big Ten championship. Okay, great. Cool. Thank you. It's going to be an awkward divorce that, but it has to happen. You have to have that, awkward conversation, just because if you go and tell Juwan after the year, okay, our Green here, if you want to disregard everything after the 2 years, you're completely disregarding everything that John Beilein built.
This isn't just wins and losses either.
It's built
right.
No, Beilein didn't have to reset anything because he took over a program that was shit. He took over a program that was crap. It was horrible. There's no resetting your shit. He took over shit and built it up to something, and now this program has been knocked to the ground, pissed on, and then lit on fire. There's nothing to there. It was just reverse. Everything happened in reverse order. It's on the ground. It's rubble. It's horrible. If you're okay with mediocre basketball, be my guest. But if you were loving what John Beilein did the last however many years he was coach, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that with Juwan. You're going to rearrange you're going to just get out of here. I'm done with this shit. I can't deal with stupid. It's like I have a low tolerance.
He thinks making a staff move to improve the defense.
Juwan Howard is not John Beilein.
No, I'm just saying that's what he's talking about. John Beilein why can't I think of his name right now? Who was the assistant he brought in to help with defense?
Oh, well, there was Yaklich. And
thank you. That's who I was trying to think of.
Billy Donlin, and he went to Northwestern.
Right. That's not what, like, if you think like, yes, thank you. Yeah. Look what you did, Trevor. I was hoping. Yeah. If you think that Juwan Howard just needs to replace an assistant, you're crazy. Right. Like, Doug having grades issues, first off, is not just Doug's problem.
Right. And if you're okay with your coach slapping other people and getting into fights with your strength and conditioning guy and threatening to kill other coaches, be my guest. Have fun with that, because you're going to be miserable for years, because you're going to watch absolute crap basketball that you've been watching for the better half of 2 years. It's not going to work. It's not working. It's not working.
Yeah.
This isn't working. You got to move on. You're not going to get a Harbaugh revival in after 2020. You're just not going to do it.
Steve nails it analogies.
Steve nailed it. Great point. Absolutely 100% correct. You can still love Juwan as what he did as a Michigan player and as a representation of the university. Yes. But you can admit he's not getting it done. And that's all you can do. If Georgetown had the balls to fire Patrick Ewing, who are very much on the same trajectory in terms of performance, had a good couple of years and then took a nosedive once the players that you were coaching got out of the system. Yeah, you can do it. It's going to happen, because if no one's going to want to watch this. I don't watch it. Who's going to want to watch crap basketball that can't even finish a second half? Can't even finish a game. It's just, you're watching this basketball program just go in reverse, like reverting to just high school level stuff. It's to think that this is the best you're going to get, or it's going to get better than this. Well, someone's going to have to come in, and you're going to have to hire a manager or some sort that knows how to build a roster, because this land of misfit toys that they've got in their starting five, and there are 3 players on their bench because they can't build a team, you're not going to win anything. You're just not.
I feel bad for the players on that point, because it's just a weird rotation. All the bigs, and then you're getting crushed in the paint. You're not getting rebounds. Your star point guard, like you said, isn't playing on the road game, and somehow George Washington can't get on the floor. You've got empty chairs. You've got a player you brought in internationally that isn't playing. It's just, yeah, it's a mess. And like you said, it's not just wins and losses. It's the off the court stuff too. And the Harbaugh analogy to 2020, and Harbaugh bounced back. Well, yeah, Harbaugh had a history of success, right? Yes, Juwan had the run he had when he first got here. I hate saying with Beeline guys, but fact, he got the top recruiting class, ended up flaming out. They both left. What is the recruiting class ranked right now? It's got to be in what, the bottom 30s or 40s?
Oh, I don't know.
Like, this roster's not going to be better next year. There's no way. And the transfer thing, look, we can beat on admissions like crazy, man. I get it. But when Jim Harbaugh in Michigan needed an edge player 2 years ago and went after a sophomore named Josiah Stewart, who was going to maybe face difficulties with admissions, those conversations were had from the beginning, and he came in and did what he had to do, and he was eligible. Just this offseason, sophomore linebacker from Maryland, Jayshon Barham, is currently enrolled at Michigan and taking classes. There's a way to do it. And like we talked about with NIL too, he made a public statement back in what August or October. I can't remember which month it was. August or October of 2022. He shared his frustration with it. What have you done since then to advocate for your program or to try and build it up? Or what have you changed about your own style to operate within the the walls that you're in? Right? Because I've seen people say, oh, no coach could win here with these restrictions. No way. It could be better than 7 wins right now, though, right? Like, does it have to be this bad? Even if you want me to accept Michigan basketball can't be what it was under Beeline because of the changing of NIL and transfer portal. They're last place in the Big Ten. We can't be Nebraska, who's been on the up. Northwestern. Like, come on, man.
If you want to make the argument to keep Juwan, just say that you're a fan of average basketball. Just say it. You like watching bad basketball. That's there's no positives to keep him.
If he wasn't Fab 5 Juwan Howard, nobody would be defending him, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And it doesn't, you're right, it could be awkward. I mean, it depends on how he feels. Maybe he thinks he needs a change of scenery too, and there can be some mutual whatever. But I look at like Brady Hoke, right? Brady Hoke came in when Michigan felt like it had lost its identity, and he had all this weight on him of trying to not only rebuild this program, but fix the fan base and the way Michigan felt about himself, and blah, 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 blah. It was just too much. He was over his head. And in that last year, you got Shane Morris on the field with a concussion, and you've just got these things that are inexplicable. It's one thing to have a hiccup and like, hey, this is why this year didn't work, but here's where we think the progress is moving forward. You can't have kids failing, dude. And like I said, he wasn't the first one. There's been grades issues in the past, man.
And on the opposite end, he doesn't graduate anyone anyway.
So I was going to say, the grades has been an issue for a while, man.
He doesn't graduate anyone. Yeah. He's got kids flunking, and he doesn't graduate anyone. There's no in between. So
you know what it is? It feels like, and this is just speculation, it's not fair for me to put this on Juwan, but like this guy that played in the NBA for a long time, and the only coaching chops he got cutting his teeth was as an NBA assistant coach. and he was obviously excited to come back to his alma mater. We all saw the press conference and how emotional he was and what it meant for him to come back here. The parts he struggles with are everything that comes with being a college coach.
Right.
The roster building in college, the student portion of college, right? Like,
yep.
Maybe he just doesn't want to be a college coach, and he seems frustrated by it. But the whole time Caleb Love was sitting there and not getting in. I don't care. I don't care if it's a MAC guard, who it is. You should never have an empty chair. And then if the logic is fine, we're going to stake this year. We're going to have these empty chairs. We're going to completely reload in recruiting this offseason. Well, that's not happening. So you can't tell me that's what's happening. Right. So, yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't know. We could probably, we could have the same conversation. I knew they were going to lose that game.
Yeah. No lead. No lead is safe with Michigan. I mean, no lead. They could have a 30-point lead at the half and you'd expect them to lose.
And then to not even be competitive. I mean, what did they shoot? 23% in the second half or something like that?
That team sucks. It's just terrible. And like the comparing Juwan to John Beilein is offensive to John Beilein. Like they're not even in the same stratosphere. Like
yes,
that is just disgusting. Like again, if Michigan, if basketball was a 1/2 game, Michigan would be national champions 3 years in a row. They'd be three-peating because no one can beat them in the first half. It's the second half and ending games is where it all goes wrong, which that's on leadership. If you can't have a closing mindset, have a killer mindset of getting guys locked in tough moments, you're never going to get it. That's never going to happen ever. It's just not.
This is not a betting show, but fall season is 100% correct. Michigan State was -6.5 at halftime last night. I teased that to
it is free money
or something. Oh my God, dude.
It's free money.
I was wondering with Michigan having the lead, I'm like, oh, I wonder how far it's down. And it was literally, Vegas wasn't fooled. It was the exact same spread as the start of the game. Yep. But it's like 7. I have a text with my buddy and I right when halftime started. He's like, they're going to blow us out. I'm like, oh yeah, 20 points. It ended up being 19. But
it's just gross because the Michigan State basketball rivalry used to mean so much with between John Beilein and Tom Izzo. And I would say it was respectful between the two. And now no one could give two shits about last night's game. I mean, yeah, the national championship in football does a lot to help you, but
nobody even knew the game was on.
Right. No one cares.
And then they have to go get Peacock to watch it.
Yeah. No one cares about the Michigan State basketball rivalry right now.
Yeah.
It's just, what's the point? And granted, both teams aren't good, but Michigan State's just a little better than not good. It's
well, yeah, they were right.
It's sad how far that rivalry has fallen off the table.
Yeah. No, it is. And obviously we have a national championship in football and a new coach and all of these things, but I used to enjoy, I'm not going to pretend I've ever been the most avid Michigan basketball fan. I'm more of a football guy anyway. When I grew up, I was just starting to get into basketball post Fab 5. So I didn't know about good Michigan basketball until Beilein came. Right. So I spent my 90s years watching UNC and Duke play each other. So Michigan basketball to me is what it was under Beilein. That's how, and I think a lot of fans, the football season ends and they start to migrate towards basketball and then they get their eyes on it. And for Juwan, he's almost lucky the coaching change happened because that's keeping eyes off of basketball maybe a little bit longer too. But
right.
We'll see where it goes. I would not be shocked if he's back next year.
I wouldn't be either. But if this keeps on going, there's
Phil retires.
Yeah.
Maybe Isley goes and does something else. I love Saudi Washington, so I can't imagine. I don't know. The idea that a couple coaching changes would fix it. And then the roster, I just don't know what roster moves exist. But anyway,
you're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic and you're leaving a giant shit pile for the next guy to deal with.
Right. All right. Well, I wanted to get that rant out of you. I'm glad I did.
Oh, well, that guy even comparing Juwan and Beeline just really just pissed me off.
Yeah.
Just insane. Just an insane. No, there's no even comparing the two in terms of building up a program.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. So anybody just now joining us, obviously we dove into the Michigan football coaching staff, some rumors, some things we know, some things we don't, some speculation. You can go back and check that out. We will continue to talk about all these rumors and everything going on over at michigan.rivals.com inside the den. I recognize a lot of our viewers here, a lot of our subscribers are in here. You know, we appreciate you guys in our community. If you're not a member already, come give us a shot for free. Got all spring, end of March. NatChamps24 is the promo code. If you go to Josh and I's profiles on Twitter, we've posted about the promo, and you can click the link and it auto fills in as well. But and like I always say, feel free to ask our subscribers when you get in there, talk in the community. Not trying to be cheesy with the selling point, but we're pretty happy with what we have over there, and our folks are amazing. And anybody who wants to join, we obviously appreciate you. So for now,
just don't compare Juwan Howard to John Beeline. Just that's all.
Yeah, that'll get him going.
It'll get you a quick ban.
We need to add that to the message board rules. No comparing Juwan Howard to John Beeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right, guys, make sure you're liking the video. Please, helps us out a ton. Make sure you are subscribing and doing notification bells so you know when we go live, whether it's us with Hail to the Podcast, most likely on Sunday this week. Obviously, we've been moving it around a little bit the last few weeks. We appreciate you guys adjusting with us. And then, of course, Dennis is live during the week with Good Afternoon. And Dennis, man, what a rock star. We've just been bitching about basketball for 15 minutes. That dude does a post-game live after every single Michigan basketball game and lets you guys come in and just throw whatever at the wall with your frustration. Yeah. I'll tell you what, that guy, I'm just so lucky to have him doing those shows every week, man. That's got to be draining.
Very much agree.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you again, as always. We'll see you soon. This has been Hail to the Podcast.